Thank you all so much for joining. We have a great crowd, I think, today. I'm Melinda Kaufman. I'm the USDA SBIR STTR Program Coordinator, and we're really glad to premiere our new slide deck that our wonderful program specialist, Nurun Nahar, designed. So this is the USDA NIFA. We're housed in the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We're the Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer Program for USDA, for all of USDA, but we are housed in NIFA. And so again, welcome. So USDA or all SBIR program goals for SBIRs across the federal government, there are 11 of them. There are 4 program goals. One is we want to strengthen the role of small business in the United States, because small business is kind of the backbone of the American economy. And so we want to make sure we help to strengthen that. And at the same time, we want to increase commercializations of these scientific and technical innovations so they don't get stuck in the pipeline, so they actually get out to the American public and beyond. And then we want to foster, very importantly, we want to foster and encourage participation by historically underserved populations. We've been working very hard to do outreach with historically underserved populations. And that's a very important part of goal for the SBIR programs. And then stimulate technological innovations in the private sector. So this is small business and science and technology coming together. SBIR and STTR programs have 3 phases. Phase 1 is a proof of concept. It's just a place to test as scientists. Of course, you don't have to be a scientist, but people can come and test out their scientific or technical innovation. We provide non-dilutive funding so you can come and have the space to test that. So you want to establish technical merit, prove the feasibility, test the feasibility. And then also in phase 1, you also are a little bit concentrating on the commercialization potential. In phase 2, you're going to really expand your research and development, but also very much ramp up your commercialization efforts. So you've done the feasibility. In phase 2, you know it's feasible. And so you're going to really work on commercializing that, again, getting that out there to the market. And then from phase 3, that is done with usually without government funding. And so you find alternate sources, angel investors, other investors, to help fund phase 3, and you continue those commercialization efforts. The budget for USDA SBIR STTR is right around $42 million. For phase 1, we have 10 topic areas, and we'll talk about those, but they range from $125,000 to $175,000. And for phase 2, all 10 topic areas are $600,000. For phase 1, SBIR, the project period is 8 months. For STTR, it's 12 months. And in phase 2, the project period is 24 months for both SBIR and STTR. These are some of the differences between kind of the basic differences between SBIR and STTR. So this is something you'll want to look at and decide which better suits your particular project. So for nonprofit research institutions or federally funded research and development center participation, we encourage it with SBIR, but it isn't, you don't have to use that. But many do, and we do encourage it. But for STTR, you must use a nonprofit research institution, which is usually a university or federal lab. And then the percent of participation by that university or federal lab, for SBIR, it's 33% or less for phase 1 and 50% for phase 2. For STTR, it's 30 to 60% for both phase 1 and phase 2. The primary employment of the principal investigator with SBIR, the principal investigator must be employed with the small business. But for STTR, one advantage probably to STTR is that you have you can be employed either with a small business or with a nonprofit research institution. And then a formal cooperative agreement is required outlining intellectual property rights only for STTR. That is not required for SBIR. So this is our typical award rate. For phase one, it is right around 15%, and that's true for most SBIR programs across the federal government. It hovers around that area. It's highly competitive, and our budgets only allow us to fund 15%. But for phase two, which you can only a phase one awardee, and for USDA, only a phase one awardee is eligible to apply for phase two. So that brings the average up to around 50% for phase two. And recall, phase two is 600,000 across all topic areas. These are some of the success metrics for all SBIR and STTR programs. Of course, the sales of the technology and the service, that commercialization is a major success metric. Also, the licenses of your technology and your innovation, those are another method, another metric for success. And obviously, new jobs created is a very important metric for success. And some of the features of the USDA SBIR program include that ideas are investigator initiated, and that the awards are based on scientific and technical merit, the PI company qualifications, and the commercial potential of the innovation. Subcontracting to universities and federal labs, as we discussed, it's required for STTR. It's just encouraged, but not required for SBIR. And then we also offer technical and business assistance, or TABA. So we might ask, what is technical and business assistance? Well, it was introduced as part of the John S. McCain National Defense Authorization Act in fiscal year 2019. This is just a smattering, a small example of what TABA can include. Typically things like IP legal costs, market research, consults on funding strategy, but it can be anything that is related to commercialization. So it's very broad, and this is, again, just a sampling. It's not limited to these activities, but it is something that is given to you. USDA pays for it. It is not part of your budget. It's beyond your budget, so it's just a freebie. So for phase one, TABA is 6,500, and that 6,500, remember, in phase one, you're focusing on your proof of concept. So 6,500 is intended to help you write your commercialization plan, because in phase two, you're going to be focusing much more on commercialization. So in phase two, you're going to be actually trying to commercialize. So you'll get $50,000 if you ask for TABA services, if you arrange those and put it as part of your application. And that 50,000 is actually used to accelerate commercialization of your project into the market. These are our 10 topic areas, and our topic areas are designed to encompass all of agriculture. So each one of them is very broad, and together they are even broader. So it's not uncommon for a small business to have an innovation that fits into more than one topic area. And so if you find yourself in that position, we have a national program leader, a scientist who you can speak with, who can help, while he can't advise you, he can help kind of illuminate a little bit more the topic areas, and which might help guide you into which one to apply for. So as you can see, we have everything from forest and related resources. We have 2 plant production and protection because it's such a large area. One is biology focused, one is engineering focused. Of course, we have animal production and protection, conservation of natural resources, food science and nutrition is a big topic area. Aquaculture is a small but important topic area. Biofuels and bio-based products is also an important topic area. Now you'll notice that 8.6 rural and community development and 8.12 small and mid-sized farms are in lighter green. And the reason for that is because for these 2 topic areas, they're the 2 that are funded at $125,000 for phase 1. While the other 8 are funded at $175,000. And the reason 8.6 and 8.12 are funded at $125,000 is because you can use off-the-shelf technology if it is applied in an innovative way for these 2 topic areas, where the others require, it's redundant, but a completely new innovation. This slide, we just like to emphasize that agriculture is very much a scientific field. And so if you have an innovation, a scientific or technical innovation that you've created and you've never thought about agriculture, maybe you're here today because you are thinking about agriculture, we really encourage you to explore that, because there very well might be an agricultural application to your innovation. So this is not a comprehensive list. This is just a sampling of the type of science and technology that is regularly used in agriculture. And it's much more than this, but this is just to give you some idea and remind you that agriculture is a scientific field. These are our typical program timelines. For phase 1, the solicitation is released in late June or during July. And then the proposal deadline is in September or October. Reviews and awards are November through January, and the start date is July. So we're expecting release of our RFA for phase 1. That'll be FY25 at the end of this month or sometime in July, as soon as it gets through the approval process. And then we're hoping if it is published during that time, then the proposal deadline will be mid-September. And the start date, then that means it's July of 2025. July 1. For phase 2, and again, remember that phase 2 for USDA is only open to phase 1 awardees. So phase 2 is almost always published in December. The proposal deadline is in March. The reviews and award notifications are April through June, and the start date is September 1st. The review process for USDA, SBIR, STTR is that proposals are evaluated by a confidential peer review, and we use outside experts, a lot from academia, also from nonprofits, from industry, and from federal labs at times. All applicants will receive copies of their reviews from the panel, and phase 1 applicants that were not selected for funding are able and encouraged to reapply for phase 1 funding during the next solicitation. Remember that there's a 15% success rate. So it's many of our awardees, many of our successful phase 1 and phase 2 awardees that move on to phase 2 have had to apply for phase 1 more than one time. So that's common. Phase 2 applicants, again, are only able to apply one time, but you may have to apply for phase 2 more than one time.
Thank you, Melinda.
You're welcome.
The next set of slides start with me, and I am Tammy Neville. I am a program specialist with the USDA SBIR STTR programs. Within the SBIR program, university or federal scientists may serve as a consultant for the small business, or they may receive a subcontract from the small business to do a portion of the work. While doing this, they can continue to work at their home institution full-time. There are limits to the amount of the budget that can be used for outside sources outside of the small business. So for phase 1, that's limited to 1/3 or less than 33% of the budget. And in phase 2, that limit is half or 50% of the budget. University or federal scientists may decide, or a small business may decide that they want a university or federal scientist to serve as the PD or PI for their submission. At that time, that scientists must reduce their employment at their home institution to 49% or less for the duration of the award. So the goal is to have that PD or PI to have the primary employment with the small business during the award period. And it's typically, as a general rule of thumb, it's not usually acceptable for the university or federal scientist to serve as that consultant or a subcontractor and have all the research done within their home institution laboratory. So there should be some research and development outside of the university or federal lab. When we move to STTR, as Melinda talked about earlier when she put that table up comparing the differences between SBIR and STTR, I'm going to just kind of expand on that a little bit more. The university and federal scientists are eligible in STTR to serve as the PD or PI and still be employed with their home institution. The employment for STTR for the PD or PI can be with either the small business or with the partnering research institution. For USDA, we're going to determine that percentage of effort or work by a quantitative method using a percentage of the budget. And as a reminder, or another way to put what Melinda said earlier, that the small business must perform a minimum of 40% of the work on the project, or 40% of the budget must remain with the small business. A minimum of 30% of the work must be performed by the partnering research institution, which is evaluated as 30% of the budget. 30 plus 40 does not equal 100, so that remaining 30% can either remain with the small business, or it can go to the partnering research institution, or it could go to one or more additional subcontractors beyond the primary research partner. Within our request for applications, we do have the language that's located or that's stated in the green box on this screen that says that we can use the existence of a cooperative research and development agreement, or CRADA, with a USDA or another federal lab, or a federal license to the innovation, can be an important consideration when we go to perhaps break a tie when determining funding amongst 2 or more applications that are deemed of equal merit. If you are interested in pursuing a CRADA specifically with a USDA laboratory, then we recommend that you reach out to the Agriculture Research Service Office of Technology Transfer. And we can put that information in the chat if you need that. Some factors that improve the chances of an award success, as Melinda said, this is a competitive program with that 15% success rate in phase 1. Some things to consider are that we're going to look for a balance of that scientific or technical merit and that commercial potential. If it is a high risk technology, then we want to be able to see where that's going to have a high reward or a high impact on the commercial sector when you go to move that to the marketplace. If you feel that there's a weakness within your company for some expertise, looking for good consultants or developing a CRADA with a federal lab or a USDA lab could help strengthen the key personnel that will be working on that application, and that could improve your chance of success. And likewise, having somebody with some business expertise. The technical side and the business side, when you move to phase 2, are evaluated equally. And so making sure you have somebody that has that, or finding somebody that can bring that business expertise into your application. When you move into phase 2 or even at phase 1, looking for letters of support for phase 3 partners or end users, consumers, or investors can help strengthen the need for that technology within the marketplace. And then clearly explaining where you're going to enter and sustain within the market. Do you have competitors that you would be competing against? Do you know what they're bringing to the marketplace and how your product would differentiate or stand out amongst any potential competitors? Having a clear understanding of where you would sit within the marketplace is really important, especially as you move through to that phase 2 application. When we look at the application process for phase 1, there are some registrations that are required in order to submit your application. I recommend starting early, and if you think you're already registered, logging in to verify, because some of these registrations do need to be renewed annually. I do like to talk about them in a little different order than what's on the screen. I think registering at SAM.gov is probably the first step, because when you register with SAM.gov, you will obtain your UEI number, which is then used to register with SBIR.gov. You can sign up or register on grants.gov without a UEI, but you will not be able to submit an application on grants.gov without your UEI. And that UEI is the one that's going to take the longest amount of time to obtain that registration. So if you are not registered with SAM.gov, if you do not yet have a UEI, then I highly encourage, if you're thinking, even remotely considering submitting an application this year, that you start that process and obtain that UEI in plenty of time. If you choose not to apply this year, you can go into SAM.gov next year and you can renew that registration and then submit your application. But because we do take all the applications are submitted through grants.gov, having that UEI is really an essential piece of the puzzle for the application. Again, in that competitive aspect of the program with the 15% success rate, everybody's looking for a little bit of advice. And I hope that we can leave you with some of that here today. All of our national program leaders, we have one or more national program leader per topic area. So we have a minimum of 10 national program leaders, and we're starting to get a few topic areas that have multiple national program leaders. They're used to receiving contact from potential applicants to discuss fit to the topic area. Take time to reach out to them and send them an email that I like to recommend 3 things. One, what your overall goal would be for the application you would be submitting. Maybe the second sentence would be what your technical objectives would be in order to reach that overall goal. And then that third sentence kind of wrap it up with where you would see your product being commercialized or entering the marketplace, the vision of where that would go, in order to ask for a consultation for a topic area fit. They can then have a little bit of information before they go ahead and schedule that consultation with you. Follow the application guidelines that are listed in the request for applications when it is published. There are formatting guidelines for pages. There are page limits or word limits for documents, and there are required documents. Make sure that you pay attention to those and you follow those guidelines that are in the RFA. And then when you look at the topic area, make sure that your application responds to the review criteria that are listed in the RFA. Each one of our RFAs that are published have a section called evaluation criteria. Those will be the exact criteria that are supplied to the review panelists when they are reviewing your proposal. And so have that, give yourself that time to perhaps let somebody else look at the review criteria and your proposal before you submit it, to make sure that you're addressing the all of the aspects that are going to be evaluated. Because if somebody outside of your writing circle cannot identify where you addressed an evaluation criterion, it's likely that one of the peer review panelists will likely not be able to find where you address that criterion is either. And so give yourself that time when you're developing those applications. Have somebody else look at those evaluation criteria. But at the end of the day, all the information that I just talked about on this slide is listed in the RFA. So take time when it's published to read the RFA, to distill what it says. I'll apologize now. It is a very lengthy document, and there is a lot of stuff in there that we're required to put in there that we would really prefer not to put in there because it does take up so much time. But it also contains all the information that you need in order to submit your application. And so distilling out the important information, making sure you're eligible, making sure you follow the application guidelines are all within the RFA. We are hoping, as Melinda said, with the timeline side, we're hoping that phase 1 RFA will be published either later this month or in July. A little bit more advice for this phase 1 application that would be coming out is to provide that vision. Where do you see the market opportunity for your product or your innovation? Take a bit of time within your application to sell the importance of your project and how it aligns within the USDA priorities. Those USDA priorities are, again, listed in the RFA. And so they are you do have access to them once that RFA is published. Provide a detailed experimental plan. You will be evaluated as part on your research or what you're planning to do with the funds that you're going to be receiving. So providing that detailed plan of how you're going to conduct the work and what you anticipate the results to be would be really a helpful advice to pass along. Take a little bit of space within your application for phase 1. It doesn't have to be a significant amount of space because phase 1 is that proof of concept. But take a little bit of space to provide that insight into the commercial potential. to show the peer review panel that you've thought about where or how you might market your research or your innovation. And then with this last one, showing the connectivity, I like to think about the community more than just like your next door neighbor or your local neighborhood, but there are other definitions with communities that we can think about that you should be as you develop your technology. You might have a community specific to your technology, showing how that fits within or connects to different communities could be beneficial as well. There are some application assistance resources available for applicants. The Small Business Administration has both small business development centers and federal and state technology partnership programs. Finding these local assistance programs among others that are sponsored by SBA can be accessed by that website or URL at the bottom of the slide with the local assistance. Specifically, those small business development centers are going to focus on providing support to small businesses that are applying for SBIR or STTR grants. And there is at least one SBDC in each state. Overall, there are 62, but every state has a minimum of one. When we look at a FAST partnership, those programs are set up in order to increase SBIR and STTR awards to women, socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, and small businesses that are located in underrepresented areas, which can typically be a rural state or perhaps an urban area that does not have a lot of business development. Our USDA SBIR STTR program is really working to do as much outreach as we can in order to foster and encourage participation through the underrepresented populations. We typically provide outreach through the assistance organizations, the SBDCs, FAST programs, by presenting this type of general overview to these programs. So if you know of an organization or if you're part of an organization that would like to have USDA provide a virtual event, then please don't hesitate to reach out to the SBIR STTR office. We target to provide a minimum of 3 virtual overviews similar to this presentation per month. We do participate in the Small Business Administration's SBIR STTR outreach events through America's Seed Fund, including the road tours, both virtually and in person, as well as Tech Connect and through the SBIR STTR spring and fall conferences. We will have a booth at both of those events. And we do have additional participation to in-person events, but we are limited by the budget that we have available. So if you're reaching out for an event, go ahead and we'll probably primarily push a virtual event, but if there's a big demand for an event that would have a big impact, then we can at least consider an in-person event. As part of continuing our outreach effort, specifically within underrepresented populations, we've contracted with ICF Next to increase the breadth and depth of our outreach efforts. The QR code on the screen is to start a discussion with ICF Next, specifically around what I've termed matchmaking SBIR STTR style. So if you're a small business that is looking for a researcher that could help with developing proof of concept for research projects, or maybe you are that researcher that has the innovation, but you don't have access to the small business or for-profit side of things, You can go ahead and scan that QR code and start a discussion with ICF Next and see if they can help find a match for the needs that you have. They're further connecting us to innovators through the small business development centers, the accelerator programs and catalyst programs with SBIR, and state SBIR coordinators where they're available. They're helping provide application workshops that target specific communities, particularly to those that don't have access to the SBIR accelerator programs or state SBIR coordinators. And they're helping connect applicants with organizations that can help guide them through the step-by-step process of developing the application. As I said, the RFA in itself is a large document to distill, but that's just step one of the application process. And so helping connect potential applicants with companies or organizations that can help with that application process. To kind of start to wind things down here in our presentation time, we're going to talk. I want to take some time to talk about some SBIR success stories. Our STTR program is very new. We are completing our second funding year with STTR, so we don't really have a lot of success stories yet from STTR, because as we know, it does take time to move an innovation into the marketplace. But we have had many SBIR success stories, and we've selected a few here to share with you today. I also think that success stories kind of help maybe invigorate us or accelerate or provide some sort of enthusiasm moving forward. So where you can see there's been success, maybe you can envision your company having something similar. Stony Creek Colors is a woman-owned company that is also located in a hub zone in Tennessee. They have developed a technology called BioPreferred that is a natural dye that is used to replace synthetic dyes. They're using a natural indigo crop, and they have a very unique processing method in order to create the natural dye. The use of BioPreferred is being used by many world-leading brand customers, including many of the denim brands that we buy that are very well known, not to call them out by name. Another recent success story is Hodek, which was previously was called Prairie Aquatech. This company was founded in South Dakota in 2011 through a joint effort between the South Dakota Innovation Partners and South Dakota State University. And they use a unique fermentation process to convert soybean meal to fish feed with using a microbial enhancement. Their commercial product is called MePro. And some of the success that they've had includes creating a larger scale processing facility in order to scale up their production, having feed manufacturers or samples sold in over 12 countries, and producing around 30,000 tons of MePro annually. They were also in 2019, they were a recipient of the Aquafeed Innovation Award that was handed out in Cologne, Germany. Grosswind Technologies is based in Iowa, and they are using a algae-based treatment system in order to treat wastewater, and so they were set up originally with a municipality, and they're removing nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus from the wastewater or the treatment ponds, and they're producing a algae-based fertilizer as a value-added bioproduct. So not only are they treating or cleaning wastewater, but they're also getting a product on the other side. So they're kind of they've got two different revenue streams with their company. IsoTrust is based in Utah, and they have developed a composite-based tower technology that is really lightweight and durable or strong. This craneless tower solution it provides a solution with respect to cost, time, and safety compared to traditional methods. And it can be deployed in remote areas because of that lightweight design and the durability, like to mountaintops where that could withstand high winds, or to rural communities in the extreme northern part of the country where it can withstand the cold temperatures. We do have a brochure that's kind of a high level look at our SBIR and STTR programs. That can be found at the URL listed on the webpage here, or on the screen now. And as we have said, we will be sharing these slides, so you will have access to that URL after you leave today. Perhaps you've noticed by some of our outreach emphasis or some of the discussion today, the importance of non-discrimination within our SBIR and STTR team. But not only through our SBIR program, but also through USDA as an entity takes non-discrimination very seriously. And therefore, we have this non-discrimination statement that I'm going to just briefly summarize by saying that USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. And then additional details on this slide are included, and a link to USDA's non-discrimination statement, 508 compliance, and filing discrimination complaints. We do encourage audience members to reference this slide if they have any questions or concerns about today's presentation. With that, we're gonna take time to open up the floor and field any questions. I know Narun has been doing a fantastic job typing answers to your questions in the Q&A box, but maybe we'll go back and pull up some of those to highlight specifically. But I also want to mention as a small plug to June 27th, we are going to have another webinar that is titled How to Write a Strong Application. And so if you are interested in participating in that, you can visit our website with the URL listed on the slide here, and you can go to that June 27th event and you can register for that as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to ask maybe to have Melinda come back on her screen, or to turn her camera back on, so that we can go through some of the questions that were submitted during today's presentation. I think that, is it Chiara? Has a good question here, Melinda. I'm not sure if you want to answer it or if you want me to, but the question is, can we apply for both SBIR and STTR? And if so, are we able to receive funding from both within the same topic or through different topics?
Sure, that's an excellent question. Tammy, do you want me to start? We can answer it together.
Sure.
That is really a good question, and I'm very glad that you asked that. You on your application, you can mark a box that says either SBIR, STTR, or both. But what both means is that you are applying for either. You can't receive both, funding from both. I'm sorry, I was going back to the question, I lost it.
Oh, sorry, I hit it.
That's okay.
It's my fault.
So you can choose either one. If your funding is such, fits that you can apply for both, that you meet the criteria for both SBIR and STTR as far as the percentage of work that small business is doing and the subcontractors to a nonprofit research institution, then you can apply for either or both, SBIR and STTR. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I just want to add on a comment about duplicate submissions. If you were to submit the exact same proposal to both SBIR and STTR separately if you put in two separate applications, and on one application you marked SBIR and on one application you marked STTR, but the submissions were identical in the overall goals, and the work plan, those would probably be flagged as a duplicate submission, and you would risk having both of them disqualified during the administrative review process. And so if you're considering or you have that flexibility to apply to either program, as Melinda talked about with the budget and with the PD location of employment, then it would be probably a more wise choice to mark the both box and then let us look to see where we would potentially have the funding if it was recommended for funding.
There was, as long as we're talking about SBIR and STTR, there was a question earlier, and I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of what happened to it, but as far as the budgets for SBIR and STTR, so the allocation for SBIR is 3.2%, while the allocation for STTR is 0.45%. So the STTR is a much smaller program than SBIR. That said, I will add that we are just getting started with STTR, so we are not overwhelmed with STTR applications at this point. We hope to be at some point in the future, but not now.
I think that going alongside of this, I think is a really good myth that could be busted. That there's a question in the Q&A that says small businesses can't apply on their own. That would be the myth, that they need a research arm or a foundation in order to proceed with an application. Melinda, would you like to kind of bust that myth for the audience?
Right, you don't have to. You for SBIR, you do not have to contract with a nonprofit research institution. You can do all the research, all the proof of concept, feasibility study yourself. So, and also in phase 2, you don't have to contract. So but for STTR, you do have to subcontract with a non-research a nonprofit research institution.
Thanks for busting that myth. I will add that the small business that is applying for the funding, whether it's SBIR or STTR, that small business is always going to be the applicant, and it must be structured as a for-profit entity.
Good point.
As long as the small business that's applying is a for-profit entity, they would be eligible to apply even without partnering with a research arm or foundation. Thank you for at least partially busting that myth with the SBIR program, but not necessarily with the STTR program. I think another good myth that I'm seeing in the Q&A is, I need a specific TRL level or technology readiness level in order to be eligible to apply. Melinda, you want to bust that myth too?
Sure. Again, kind of like I said at first, and if you, some people trickled in, so you may not know this, but phase one is very much, it's a space for small businesses with scientific and technical innovations to come and to get some funding to come test out your idea. We want the scientific and technical community to be able to really have a little time and space to be able to really test that idea. So that's kind of the whole idea behind phase one. Do you have something to add, Tammy?
Nope, I think that was great. It's really phase one's that proof of concept. And so coming in and having, the ability to gain that capital for your company to be able to prove your concept actually works can be a great way to get started. There's also a question here, I think, that gets at equality of our topic areas. I know, Melinda, you mentioned in our when you had the topic area slide up, you commented that the plant production side was really big topic area, so it was divided into two. You mentioned that food science and nutrition was a really big topic area. The question is, how is that funding divided amongst topic areas? Is there a benefit to applying to one topic area over another? And yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would say, first of all, the most important thing is to make sure it's a fit for your innovation. So that is first and foremost. So, and as I said, sometimes you fit into more than one topic area, even I've seen 3, sometimes even 4 topic areas, but you really want to work with our staff to help kind of define what the topic areas are so you can make the best choice for your innovation.
And I think kind of expanding on that, we do target a similar funding rate across all of our topic areas. And so there may be more or fewer applications to a specific topic area, but we try and remain fair across all the topic areas, and by having that similar funding rate of approximately 15% for phase one, regardless of the topic area. There may be more awards coming out of a topic area if you see a press release, but that would likely be a really strong indicator that there were way more applications to that topic area than another topic area that may have fewer awards that were announced, because we do try and keep that equitable funding. Here's a good question about from a research scientist that's located at a state university. And they're asking, should they apply to STTR? And so maybe we'll talk through again just some of the differences as that scientist from that state university to consider to decide which is better.
Sure. The two things that stand out for me is, differences between SBIR and STTR is if you are, say, a university staff, a professor, even, a research associate, whatever, at a university, then for SBIR, you have to decrease your amount of time at the university to under 50% for the duration of the project. But for STTR, you can be employed either at a small business or the university. I mean, let me be clear that you have to have a small business for either one.
For profit small business.
For profit small business, thank you. Yes. And then beyond that is the other thing is that if you need more, you need to subcontract more of the research, then STTR might be the one to look at, because it just has more, it allows a greater percentage of the research to be subcontracted. Tammy, do you want to add anything?
I think I just really want to summarize that there are companies that they're destined for SBIR. Their structure is set up so that they're not even going to consider STTR because their PD is with the small business. They're going the small business is going to outsource very little of the research and development. They may not even be outsourcing any of the work. They might not have a subcontractor at all. They may be 100% committed to SBIR. There may be companies out there that are are pigeonholed into STTR because that PD is going to come from a university or a federal lab, and they want to maintain their employment at their home institution, and so in that case, STTR is kind of the only option for you to pursue. As Melinda said, that percent of subcontracts is also something to consider. If you need a greater investment or participation from an outside source, STTR is probably a better option. And it's really taking the time to look at what you have developed for your company, what you've developed for your innovation, and what the needs are prior to submitting your application to determine which is your better option.
We have a question in the chat about whether a company can be nonprofit, and it cannot. For all SBIR programs are designed for profit small businesses that are based in the United States.
So if you are working with a nonprofit, if you're employed by a nonprofit, but you can partner with a for-profit entity, then you would be eligible to apply through STTR or potentially through both, depending on how you structure your application.
Yes, that's very true. And some I've known of nonprofits that spin off a for-profit from to apply for an SBIR or STTR.
A lot of times, if you're located within a university, if that's your nonprofit, a lot of times the sponsored programs office can help you navigate those waters with a for-profit entity to make sure that the university is happy with how everything is structured and there's no conflicts of interest or anything like that with your position. Let's see here. Oh, okay. This is a really good question. I think we kind of touched on it off and on, but we maybe didn't say it clearly. But are the funds dispersed as a grant or contract?
Because we are grant funded, so that's a very good question, because it varies between SBIR programs throughout the federal government. Some are contract, some are a combination of grant and contract, but USDA is all grant funded.
I think there's also a really good question that ended up in the chat instead of the Q&A. And if you guys are following the Q&A that's been answered, this one might have got missed, but it's a question about matching funds. And if matching funds are a requirement for applying for SBIR or STTR. And I think the answer to that is just flat out no. I'll be short and sweet. No, you do not need matching funds. So no requirement at all for that.
And that's one of the big benefits of SBIR, and it's that it was designed that way. So again, just giving an opportunity to have some research dollars for an idea that you need the proof of concept. You think it's going to work, but you're not sure. So
Yeah.
this is the money you don't have to pay back, you don't have to match to just test that idea.
And the federal government takes no equity in your company.
Yes, correct.
So, following up on the previous question, with the grant versus the contract, this is kind of maybe a spin-off of that question. If the grant funds are provided up front or if they're paid on a reimbursable basis. And, I'll answer that by saying the funds are deposited into an ASAP account, the automatic system for something payments. And that is administered through the Department of Treasury. And then you log in and you withdraw funds on an as needed basis. They do, the Words Management Division does recommend that you log in perhaps on monthly basis to withdraw funds. I think that's mostly a recommendation to make sure that your account stays active and that no one questions whether or not they should close out your account, even though there's still funds in there and you're actively during your award period. It just raises no questions if you're logging in on a regular basis to withdraw those funds.
And ASAP stands for Automated Standard Application for Payments. You were very, very close there, Tammy.
I always miss the standard. That's what it is.
I'm gonna pay Tiffany card. If you are 2:54, Tammy, if you guys can answer that question, Tiffany card 2:54 p.m. Oh, your time 1:54.
Okay, sorry. I guess I had thought that was the matching question. Okay. Yes, there is a question in that again is in the chat instead of in the Q&A. How strict are the phase 1 and phase 2 money and time maximums? I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that you're talking about the percentages that can be subcontracted. If I'm not correct, please turn your mic on or drop a message in the chat correcting me with my assumption. But the phase 1 and phase 2 maximums for subcontracting are set by the legislation. So I would say those are pretty strict. When you start distilling the how the program was set up, especially for SBIR, and then as well as those percentages. Okay. Can you exceed a budget of 175? Sorry, I did not interpret that correctly. The question is, can we exceed the budget maximum for phase 1 or phase 2? No. If you exceed the budget maximum, you will either not have your application reviewed, or if it is reviewed, and if it is recommended for funding, it will not be funded at the amount you're asking for. So no, you cannot exceed that budget.
But remember that you can get technical and business assistance on top of your budget. So that's $6,500 for phase 1 to help write the commercialization report for phase 2, and it's $50,000 in phase 2.
We've been getting a lot of questions asking, are there advantages or disadvantages to applying for both SBI or STTR? And really, I think the take-home message that Melinda and I really want you to take home is that you have to decide what's best for your company. You have to take some time to be introspective of what you need and what you have within the capabilities of your company. And then you have to decide what's best for you. And so I think that's at least the take-home message I would like to pass along. Melinda, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think Tammy said that really well. It seems as if probably it depends on how much subcontracting you're going to plan to do for research. So that's, if I were the small business, that's where I'd start. How much subcontracting am I going to have to do?
Yeah. There's another one that just came up in the chat. If you already have an interested customer that is a federal source, perhaps US Forest Service, how can they best demonstrate that commercialization potential beyond a letter of support, or if a specific customer name dropping is okay? And I think at that point, to me, getting that letter of support from US Forest Service indicating that they are potential customers and they are interested in purchasing your innovation would be the best way to show that support. Melinda, do you have any other suggestions?
I was just going to say about letters of support, we don't have a prescribed number that you should have. And that's because it just depends. If you have an innovation that you're going to sell, say, to small farms, then you might want to try to get, 4 or 5 small farmers to say that they'd be interested in purchasing your innovation when it comes to market. If you have somebody like the Forest Service behind you, or if you have a bear behind you, then you're not going to need as many support letters. So just keep in mind you're demonstrating the commercial viability. And you can either do that with a lot of, a few more smaller letters of support or some bigger investment. There was a question about a company that was publicly traded. I can't, if a company is publicly traded, small business with present limited angel funding, can they apply? Yes, you can, as long as you are a small for-profit business. And as long as you're small, as long as you're under 500 employees, and then, you meet the other criteria like being US based and all that. Yes, you can.
Thanks, Melinda. We do have open, I just want to do a quick time check. We're a little after 10 minutes after the hour. And we do have slated to go to the bottom of the hour to answer any questions. We'll stay on as long as the questions keep flowing. And so if you have additional questions that you haven't gotten answered yet, please go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those. I guess maybe we didn't answer Philip's question quite right, but he was talking about the advantages and disadvantages of applying for both instead of applying for SBIR or STTR individually. And we didn't really talk about that both option. But for me, again, if you have the flexibility to apply for both, and you think that receiving funding from either SBIR or STTR would fit with your company, then yeah, go ahead and consider that application for both, both programs at once, or either, as Melinda likes to say. At the end of the day, taking that time to figure out what you need and what you have will help you decide what's better. I don't know as if there's really advantages one or disadvantages one way or the other. Melinda, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you said that very well. I mean, I guess we would just not encourage you to try to manipulate the needs to bring your innovation to fruition by making it fit into one of those. either SBIR or STTR when it really clearly needs where it clearly matches more, one SBIR or STTR. So always please let your research needs guide that.
I think that's just a really good take-home message. Taking that time to be introspective and finding out what your company has and what your company needs is really great. I do see a great question here about where research is conducted for the proposed research. Would it be, or how would research done outside of the United States impact an application? Does SBIR or STTR require all the research to be done in the US, or is there flexibility to have some done outside of the US? Melinda, do you want to answer that?
Generally, we want all the research to be done, the company based in the US, the research done in the US. If there has to be a really legitimate reason that has to be done outside the US, such as say there's a certain crime in the US that is part of your research, then that could be a reason. I think we've had things like that, but it's pretty narrow. So it really has to be, you have to have a reason that is not accessible in the US.
And quotes, it being cheaper someplace else isn't a very strong argument for conducting that work in another country.
Yes.
So it has to be strongly justified. I think this is kind of a question about the resubmission, but also the review process. If an applicant is making a resubmission based on the panel review, does that resubmission get reviewed by the same panel members? And Melinda talked about that peer review process where we use panel members to help us evaluate the proposals, kind of take them from that all bunched up thing and to spread them all out into a nice little line so we can go through that funding line. But when that's talking about the process. When we actually get to the makeup or the construction of that peer review panel, we try not to have more than 50% of the panel repeat from year to year. And so they will not be the identical panel members reviewing. There is the possibility that there might be somebody on the panel that served the prior time when your proposal was evaluated. But there's no way to know how the newly constructed or newly organized panel will react to that review. So if you feel that when you get those comments back, that there's something that's beneficial to strengthening your proposal, make sure you address that in that response to reviewers. We did talk about how resubmissions really are a key way to make it through this program. And it's not saying that resubmission or that people don't get funded when they submit the first time, but that we really do encourage applicants to take those reviewer comments, think about them, distill what the information was said. At first it hurts because you get this Band-Aid ripped off that says you don't get funding, but taking time to think about those comments and think about your innovation and the team that you have developed, and how those comments might help strengthen that. And then moving forward with that resubmission. I think a great myth is I didn't get funded the first time, why will I ever receive funding? But continuing to strengthen that application, being persistent and putting it back out there could be very beneficial to you in the end.
Yes. Very well put.
This is an interesting question, and I'm not sure we really have an answer. Somebody is very anonymous, so they're sneaking the question in here without us knowing who they are. But the question is, what percentage of awards are made to those with university affiliations? For example, faculty, graduate students, postdocs, or staff. And I think, I don't think we really have this quantified, number one. But number two, I think that it also is very dependent on SBIR or STTR, because our STTR awards are going to be 100% affiliated with a university or a federal lab, because they have to have that subcontract. But when we move to SBIR, Melinda, do you have a number? I know I don't have a number.
No, we don't have any data on that. That's a really good question, but I'd like to take this opportunity to say that we do have a lot of university personnel that apply for SBIR and STTR grants. They spin off a small business to do that, but we really welcome applications. We know, like, for instance, there are a lot of producers out there that have innovations that they're using for themselves that we would love for them to apply. And so that, you know, all of agriculture can benefit from their innovation. So you do not have to be a scientist. You do not have to have a PhD behind your name, even though many people do. And that's fine. We want that. But we know there's others out there, you know, creating and inventing, and we want your applications also.
I think that's a really great to point out. Some of our topic areas have a lot higher number of applications and awards that come through that are producer driven. And so don't feel that just because you might be a producer that you are somehow unqualified or ineligible, because you are most certainly eligible and qualified based on your work history.
So if you're out there, you don't have a PhD behind your name, but you have some kind of innovation, that's why you can subcontract. You can subcontract with a nonprofit research institution that can help you design the research that you need. And you know, you just partner with them and get that, so you can get that invention out to the marketplace.
Melinda, I'm not sure if you want to answer this question live or not, but I'm going to just throw it out there anyway. Does USDA, SBIR, STTR have a Justice 40 goal for requirements above and beyond the technology proof of concept? For example, DEIA, community benefits, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's part in our slides. It's one of the goals of SBIR and STTR is to you know, increase the participation of women and socially and economically disadvantaged or otherwise underrepresented groups. So it's very much a part of that. And we at USDA have done a lot of outreach. We've done actually a great deal of outreach, and it looks promising that we are increasing the number of awards that are received in both phase 1 and phase 2 for to women and other underrepresented groups, including hub zone businesses. So we just hope our work at providing outreach continues to pay off. It's something that's very important to us and we take very seriously.
Here's a question that has kind of maybe resurfaced here and there within the chat. Is there such thing as too far advanced, you know, to apply for phase 1?
You know, I'll take a stab at it and then you jump in, Tammy. That's a pretty good question. So, a lot of times I think that there are innovations where it may be too advanced overall, but there may be a portion of the research that would still fit into a proof of concept or a feasibility study. So it could be a portion of a bigger project that you need funding to run the feasibility studies.
Yeah, I think there's a good another kind of follow-up question. I don't know if it's from the same attendee or not, but they've got, their initial research is showing promise, and they're asking if it's perhaps too far advanced. And I would question, I think our subject matter experts and our national program leaders would be the best contacts to maybe answer that question. But just because something's showing promise doesn't mean that your concept has been proved. There's likely still work that needs to be done. And when I say work, I mean research and development, in order to prove that your concept or your innovation will work. And so the funding of that research and development on something that looks to be promising could be considered, at least to take to a national program leader to discuss that level of promising results, kind of thing, for them to help evaluate that.
Kind of along with that, thank you, Tammy, is the idea that there's really no expectation that your phase 1 feasibility study will turn out the way you think it will. Again, it's a space where you can test it. But what has happened, I will, maybe not numerous times, but many times, that the initial concept doesn't work in the proof of concept research. But from that, they understand how it was designed incorrectly, or how it needs to be tweaked or changed, and then they can come back with another phase 1. You can come back with another phase 1 because the project's changed. It may be along the same lines, but it's changed.
Thanks, Melinda, for wrapping that question up kind of a little bit more. I just do want to say Narun did put in the chat some time ago that the recordings and the slides will be posted on our website. And so they're going to be posted, Narun, on not our personal website. They're going to be posted on the event webpage with USDA. And so let's just grab that link so that you can have access to the recording and the slides. Our target is to have those available within 20 days is what we're targeting. We do need some time to get everything approved before we can publish that on the webpage, but it will be shared through the webpage that I'm putting in the chat right now. We will also share those links. We have a newsletter that we send out about once a month, sometimes twice a month, when we have more activities going on. That will also be shared through the newsletter. So if you are interested in signing up for the newsletter, you can email SBIR@USDA.gov. I've put the email address in the chat as well. If you write to us there and put subscribe in the title of that email, we can get you added to that listserv to receive that newsletter when it goes out.
If there are no other questions, I would like to thank Dr. Narun Nahar for doing a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot. Probably she worked harder than either Tammy or I did. So Narun, I don't know if you want to take a bow, but we appreciate you.
All right, thank you. I think you both did a fantastic job. Thank you all of our participants to join to today's webinar. But then Dr. David Stongstead and I will be joining June 27 and go through a webinar, how to write a strong application. I'll pull back Melinda for that webinar too, if you are. I know Tammy is gonna be involved in other projects. She won't be able to join. So thank you for joining today's webinar. I think it would be useful for our new applicants specifically to apply and get ready for the SBIR STTR phase 1 application. Hope to see you there.
And thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us.
Thank you.